Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Professor Robert Romano, and I hope you enjoyed part one of the overview of what a contract is and isn't. Now we're going to talk about contract provisions. In particular, we're going to focus on the Mike Rice contract, employment contract type of issues. So we're not going to go over the Mike Rice contract right now. We're going to go over that in the next video. But I just want to give you background on what an employment contract should look like, what provisions, what elements should be in an employment contract. All right, so think about that from the beginning. What is needed to make a contract enforceable? Number one, we need to know who the parties are. Okay, is it the player and the team? Is it the sports agency and the player? We need to define who the parties are to this contract. Is it a sponsorship agreement? Then does it mean the facility and the brand, or is it the team and the brand, or the league and the brand? We really need to just figure out who the parties are. Where this comes up a lot in dispute is on the agency side. Is the player hiring the agent, or is the player hiring the agency? So if you're drafting that contract, you need to be aware that if the player is just retaining or wants to use the services of one agent, then that agent is the party to the contract, not the agency. Second part of duties and responsibilities. What are your responsibilities going to be under this employment contract? Is it, if a player, are your duties you're going to play, you're going to show up, you're going to be in shape, that kind of stuff. If you're a coach, you're going to coach, you're going to recruit, you're going to do some extra work outside of the recruitment process and the coaching process. Public relations, so maybe a TV show, maybe a radio show. All those are part of your duties and responsibilities. Reassignment clauses. We're going to go over this in detail, but these are always in employment contracts. And we're going to go over what a reassignment clause is, but I want you to think about that first before we go over it. When are we going to be paid? What the payment is going to be, and when we're going to be paid. Are we going to be paid during the season? We're going to be paid all year round. In the NFL, you get 17 game checks. All right, they come each week of the regular season. So your contract, whatever it is broken down over 17 weeks. However, coach, they get paid over a 52-week schedule. All right, so how are we going to be paid? We get paid every other week. In the NFL, it's paid once a week during the season. In baseball, it's paid differently. So you need to know what the payment amount is going to be and when you'll be compensated. This is also important for any bonuses, any game bonuses or performance bonuses. When will they be paid? Okay. If there are expenses that are laid out, who's going to pay for them and how they'll be reimbursed? Will they be reimbursed at the end of the month? Will they be reimbursed at the end of the year? Will they be reimbursed by the end of the tax year? Term. How long is this contract for? It's for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? I don't know. That's part of what we need to figure out. Felt like I was playing with my grandniece there. 1, 2, 3, because that's what we played during Super Bowl. 1, 2, 3. I spent the first half of the Super Bowl going over my numbers. She's only two. She knew them better than I did. Termination clauses. How can you be terminated from the position? Will you be terminated from this position? We'll go over that. And any restricted covenants or covenants not to compete. Okay, so in employment contract provisions, some of the major ones that we need to think about when drafting a contract are who the parties are, what your responsibilities are going to be, how you be paid, when you're going to be paid, if you lay out any extra money, when you're going to be reimbursed for that, how long is this contract for, and how this contract will end before the term if somebody breaches. Reassignment clauses. I want you to, when you're reading the Mike Rice contract, I want you to think about this reassignment clause. Reassignment clauses give the employer the right to transfer an employee into a different employment position within that organization. Okay, so that means that Rutgers University could take the head coach and put him into whatever position they want to within Rutgers University. That means they can put him in the kitchen, security, janitor, It gives the employer, in this case Rutgers University, the right to transfer an employee, the coach, into a different employment position within the organization. Okay, it's a tough clause. I mean, so I want to evaluate when you're reading Mike Rice contract whether this was a reassignment clause, what were the terms of the reassignment clause, and so forth. Okay, and why? Think about why schools, universities in particular, schools, colleges, universities want these reassignment clauses in the contract. Okay, so I want you to think about that. Also, interesting thing about Mike Rice's contract is he has a base yearly salary, and then he has a guaranteed yearly salary. Try to figure out what the difference is between the two. Analyze that. Think about that. There's a base yearly salary, and then there's a guaranteed salary. All right, it's on page 2. Go over that. Try to figure out what the difference is. Is there a difference? And if there is a difference, what's the difference between the two? All right, and also look at the other compensation that Mike Rice gets. He gets car allotment. He gets compensated when the student athletes hit a certain grade point average. He gets compensated when the student athletes graduate. What his pension looks like. Does he get anything from doing TV shows and radio shows? Is that an extra? Compensation for tickets. If the tickets sales go up, does he get compensated for that? So think about all those things. I want you to look at those, analyze them, see whether they're fair or not fair. If it looks fair in the contract itself, and if it's fair to the university as a whole. All right. Two other things I wanted to talk about real quick are termination for cause and termination without cause. All right. Termination for cause means the employer has not breached by the employer. Has not breached by the employer. This doesn't make any sense. This slide. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. This means the employer has not breached by the employee has by engaging in behavior that violates the standards of job performance. Okay, the slide doesn't make any sense. Let me clear that up. It means the employer has not breached. The employer has done everything they can to keep the contract valid. But the employee, in this case, the coach, has done something or engaged in behavior to breach that contract. If that employee does something to breach that contract, the employer can terminate them for just cause. If you were terminated for just cause, that means you forfeit the remaining balance on your contract. So if it's a 5-year deal and you're terminated for just cause in the 3rd year, the school in this case is relieved of the obligation to pay the remaining 2 years. Okay, as opposed to termination without just cause, there's no legitimate reason or justification for terminating you. The school just wants to move on. The team just wants to move on. They can terminate you without cause, but they're still obligated to pay you the balance on that contract. So that means, again, if you're in a 3-year deal and you're terminated without cause, without just cause, the school, the team, whomever is obligated to pay you that 2-year balance. So you'll still be compensated for the next 2 years. Okay? So I want to give you a little brief overview of elements of a contract, what you need to look at, what you need to analyze, what you need to think about when you're going over such with your clients, or if you're working for the team, going over with the general managers and whatnot. So think about these things, read the contract, and I'm going to probably in a day or so post another video going over and analyzing the different elements in particular on that one Mike Rice contract. Thank you.